The Five Nights at Freddy series was the breakout success that absolutely no one saw coming. While the games were simplistic survival horror games, they managed to attract a massive audience online and have single-handedly created Scott Cawthon's career. And since these games are relatively easy to make, fans have taken to making their own take on the FNAF formula, and I'm here to find out if any of them are actually any good. And since FNAF has surged in popularity recently, and now that it's October, now's the perfect time to talk about this. But I couldn't possibly do this video alone, so I enlisted the help of a friend of mine who knows a lot more about the FNAF series and its fan games than I do. So for the first time in this channel's formal history, I would like to introduce the first collab on this channel, Horrorholic.
Hello everybody, Horrorholic here.
Alright, and with the formalities out of the way, let's start with the first game, that one being... When it comes to FNAF fan games, one of the first things you think of is the Five Nights at Candy series, a series of fan games developed by Emil Ace Mako. The series itself is actually set in the same universe as FNAF, following the story of a similar line of restaurants called Candy's Burgers and Fries. And yes, they've got their own animatronics, quite a few in fact.
The animatronics in this game are Candy the cat, Cindy the cat, Chester the chimpanzee, the penguin, Blank, the rat, and...
What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that, a fucking cat? I don't even know if that's a fucking cat. Blink, motherfucker!
This game follows the FNAF formula to a T, with the main character being security for the location and looking through security cameras to defend themselves. Instead of the original FNAF's mechanics of everything taking up power, Candy's takes a different approach. This time around, the cameras in the game require night vision to be turned on if you actually want to see the camera feed clearly. It's an odd idea, but I think it works in limiting how often the player looks at the cameras. Your only means of defense are closing your doors, which also take up battery power when closed. As a result, the game places an abnormal amount of emphasis on the doors. I guess this also kind of applies to the original FNAF, but it feels greater in this game because of how fast some of the animatronics move. In FNAF, the emphasis is placed on the cameras and actually tracking the animatronics, whereas in this game, it feels like you're closing doors to reset the animatronics placement rather than actually keeping tabs on them. What's your thoughts on the gameplay anyways, Horrorholic?
I agree with what you said about the game being mostly a T to the FNAF formula, but in regards to battery usage, the main portion of it only gets used up by the doors really. Night vision does use up battery power, but it uses too little when activated to be considered a real threat to battery life. One thing I do like though when it comes to characters is that even though the game is called Five Nights at Candy's, there are actually two main animatronics that take the front stage of the establishment, that being Candy the cat and Cindy the cat. Candy is seen as being the Freddy of the game, but moves earlier than Freddy does, moving as early as night 1 or 2. Cindy is seen as a more active version of Candy, mainly being the first, if not the second animatronic to move. Chester acts like Foxy in regards that he hides behind his stage curtain and is active from night 2 onwards. He is the fastest animatronic when it comes to moving, being faster to move from camera to camera than all the other animatronics combined. Unlike Foxy, however, he does not run down a hallway to kill you, but rather moves between 3 different cameras before finally appearing outside your door. Blank is the mysterious character of the bunch, only ever being mentioned once by the phone guy, and is more so like the Mangle from FNAF 2. But instead of being a take-apart attraction, he's an animatronic that can be drawn on and has wear and tear from over the years of being active, as the back parts of his head are entirely gone and he is missing his hands. The rat and old Candy are the hardest of the animatronics, having no pupils to shine in the dark or at the doorway, so they're really the oddballs to keep track of when they're active. The penguin has to be the most obscure animatronic of them all, appearing under your desk if you don't close the door on him, and will repeatedly talk while in your office and jams your doors and lights like Balloon Boy for FNAF 2.
Regardless of such, I think this game is really solid and a good FNAF fan game in general. If you're looking for more FNAF gameplay besides the original FNAF series, this is a great entry. This naturally allows us to transition into the next game. Talk about a different sequel. Five Nights at Candy's 2 shakes up a lot of what was present in the original.
Rather than the game having the same power system from the previous game, the game now features only cameras, a flashlight for the main hall, which only gives a quick flash instead of a continuous beam of light, and the phones present in every room. The phone serves similarly to the audio action of FNAF 3, as ringing the phone is used to alert animatronics to other rooms, or to scare animatronics away from going in vents. It's a cool mechanic that keeps with the pace and always keeps the player moving and not being lazy on the cams.
Yeah, I really agree. Though the first, 2 or 3 nights are total cakewalks, devoid of any challenge. The first night only features one animatronic, so it's incredibly easy to keep track of them. And the second night only adds Chester, who is pretty easy to track as well. It's only when the game adds characters like the Penguin where the game starts getting really fun. By night 3, you have to keep going from camera to camera, checking where each animatronic is, flipping off the cameras quickly when you see the Penguin, or else he fucks up with your system, and constantly ringing phones. It's a lot of fun. I didn't really find any of these games particularly frightening personally, and this game is no exception, but where it really shines is just how fun it is to micromanage a lot of the stuff in the game. The player is always kept on their toes, and you have to always be checking something. I consider this to be the best of the Five Nights at Candy series. I do have a big complaint in how the earlier nights are kind of boring, and how the animatronics just seemingly fucking teleport to your office during later nights, but I truly feel like the level of challenge in this game makes up for that. Okay, so this is where the review is gonna get a little turbulent. This game fucking sucks.
Bro, come on. The game wasn't that bad. I somewhat really enjoyed it and considered it one of the best of the series. What makes the game so bad in your eyes?
Well, I've never been the biggest fan of games like FNAF 4. I find the emphasis on sound to overall be kind of annoying, especially when it comes to FNAF 4. Plus, the game does a poor job at explaining any of the mechanics of the game. They just kind of plop you into the gameplay and expect you to kind of get it. Not to mention, there's a tedious 8-bit minigame before the game even fucking starts proper, full of entire walls of text. Man, this is supposed to be a Five Nights at Freddy's game. I don't want to read. You think I know how to read? No, I'm fucking stupid!
Well, that's the gist of Five Nights at Candy's 3. It's not supposed to explain the game mechanics in-game, because on the Game Jolt page for FNAF for Five Nights at Candy's 3, Emo Mako explains the mechanics in the game's confirmation post on the page, so you can understand how to play it. Even then, the game should be mostly understandable. Aim the flashlight at the monster's eyes so they leave, look under the bed as prompted to find what side the monster is on, and flash the light back on them on the top side of your bed to finally scare them off. The minigames before every night are for you to find tapes for your tape player and help speed up the nights, help explain the ongoing story of the series, and tell you what to expect for the next night, and to find minigames that you can unlock to help earn more stars on the menu screen of the game. It's not my fault you can't read, man. Sorry.
Picking on the illiterate, are we?
Only you, really.
Anyways, with that said, I don't find this game terribly interesting. I know there are loads of people out there that probably like this game, and this is actually one of Horrorholic's favorite in this series, but I just don't see the appeal. But hey, if you liked Five Nights at Freddy's 4 and want a return of that style of gameplay, then here you go, I guess. Now, for this video, we aren't going to be covering Candy's 1 Remastered or Candy's 4, mainly because the former is just a remake with only one new character, and the latter is still in development. If we ever revisit this topic, then I might give them a look, but for now, we'll be moving on to...
Jesus!
You got scared.
Like you didn't scare the first time you saw it.
Okay, now here's where the games get interesting. Five Nights at Treasure Island was one of the first fan games based on Five Nights at Freddy's, before even games like Five Nights at Candy's or Five Nights at Wario's hit the scene, and even achieved popularity thanks to Markiplier playing it on his channel. The interesting part comes in when you consider that the series has taken over by different developers, first being developed by Art 1996, then switching to other developers such as Photo Negative Mickey.
Dude, I wasn't even able to find a download of the original Five Nights at Treasure Island for myself to play like you did, and...
Oh look, there it is!
What?
Why? Okay, jokes aside, the original uploads of these games on Mediafire aren't there anymore, so we had to do some deep sea diving to find the first game in the series, but was it worth searching for? Let's find out. Anyways, Five Nights at Treasure Island follows a similar format to the original Five Nights at Freddy's, as you play as a night guard stuck in some office somewhere located on Disney's Mowgli's Palace. Actually, this series is actually based on the Abandoned by Disney creepypasta. I'm actually kind of curious, what are your thoughts on the creepypasta, Horrorholic?
My thoughts on the creepypasta will be talked about when I start making my own videos for my channel, whenever that will be, due to me having work and all. But all I'll say for right now is, it's an interesting pasta.
Anyways, back to the game. There are only two mechanics, those being the security cameras and shutting them off. Yep, you heard that right. You have to turn off the cameras. Anyways, turning off a camera is actually your only means of defending yourself in this game, as according to the game, the sound of the camera shutting off lures the animatronics away from your whatever room they may be present in. I mean, to be fair, FNAF 1 seriously expected me to believe that shutting off the power in a building really meant the doors would fling open, or that doors being closed would consume power, so there really isn't any reason why I can't suspend my disbelief for this game as well. I guess my only real complaint is how I find the mechanic kind of annoying, really. On paper, the idea of shutting off cameras is a neat risk/reward system, but in reality, I don't think it really works as well as you would think. It's just kind of annoying when you have to shut off cameras to stop animatronics from coming into your office. And then they enter a room that you now can't see, so it just makes tracking them more difficult. Not to mention, it can sometimes create conflicts if a character is in a room ahead of a shut-off camera, because there's basically nothing you can do then. And you basically get boned due solely to being unlucky with character behaviors. Besides that, it's a passable Five Nights at Freddy's fan game. Really, it's on the easy side due to there being only one choke point where most characters come through, so as long as you keep an eye out for that one area, you should be able to survive all the nights. Plus, me and Horrorholic were only able to get our hands on the demo of the original and not the full game, if there even is one. So, no use dwelling on this one. Now, on to... Now these are some slick, stylish graphics. Five Nights at Treasure Island Nightmare Before Disney always caught my eye whenever I would see jump scare compilations of these games, because the designs of the characters look fucking awesome.
Dude, you gotta be kidding me.
Nope.
Actually, not thinking about it, I've never seen gameplay of this game or the jump scares.
Anyways, onto the game itself. The game has you locked in some sort of...
This looks like a rape dungeon.
Anyways, unlike the last game we looked at, this game has quite a few mechanics to it. First of all is the cameras, no duh. Second is the weird heartbeat thingy. Your heart rate increases as you look at the cameras, and if it reaches over 100, that means you're likely to get jump scared at any minute. To lower your heart rate, you must take pills.
Pills here! Pills here! Grabbing pills. Grabbing pills. Pills here! Gotta grab everything I can. Here.
Nah, you know what they say. Drugs, the solution to all of life's problems. And lastly, Nightmare Hortensia has color-coded eyes, and you need to press the button that corresponds to them on your cameras, or else you'll die. Most of every other character behaves how you would expect them to, so how did they fuck it up? 2 words. Donald Head. In the Fnatic series, the Donald Head is, you guessed it, a disembodied head of Donald Duck, and his whole shtick is that whenever he appears, he alerts other characters to your location, so they all rush to you and jump scare you. Now, in the original, you can just shut down a bunch of cameras and that gets them to fuck off normally, but in this game, I have no fucking idea. The tutorial doesn't tell you anything about him. And no, this isn't some sort of Aaron Hansen, oh, skip the tutorial and get mad when I can't beat the game. No, look at the tutorial screen. Where does it utter any mention of the Donald Head? And I know what you might be saying, but Rev, you can just look it online. But that's exactly where the game fails. If there's a central mechanic to the game, but it fails to teach you how to deal with it correctly, then the game fails. If after all types of trials and errors, you still don't know what to do, then it's really kind of the game's fault for not teaching you, especially when it has a fucking tutorial screen. That's what made the original FNAF so good, was that within 5 seconds, you understood all the controls of the game. What does the door button do? Closes the door. Same with the lights, and oh, here's the camera. Same thing applies with Foxy in the game. It relies on the player making making the connection between a running animatronic and a closed door to tell them, hey, maybe I should close the door before he gets here. It's brilliant. I tried all types of things, rapid blinking, scarfing down pills like I'm Lord Minion 777. I try to rack my brain and nothing happens. This might come off as a tangent or nitpicking or whatever, but it ruins the entire game. I really want to like this game. I really did, but because of this one thing, I can't. Alright, let's just move on. Alright, now here's something odd. A different take on the original FNAF, developed by Photonegative Mickey. This one sets you in some sort of establishment as you defend yourself by looking at and shutting off security cameras, like the original. So, how does this one stack up? It doesn't. Right off the bat, the game doesn't make it clear where characters originally come from. This seems to be a common problem with a lot of these fan games, is that the characters just kinda show up from nowhere, making it kinda hard to get your bearings at the beginning of the night. You know, the one thing you're trying to do at the beginning. Most if not all of the FNAF games make it pretty clear where each one originally comes from. The main three come from the stage, Foxy comes from Pirate Cove, the withered animatronics come from the parts room, etc. Here, the characters just kinda come from anywhere, which is just annoying enough for me to complain about it. Another thing that holds this game back is the lack of responsiveness with the camera shutting off. What I mean is that whenever you shut a camera off, the characters don't absolutely always go to that room, and just keep kinda lingering in whatever room they might be in, and that's pretty annoying. It would be like if you closed a door in FNAF and it just kinda opened up for no reason by itself. So it kinda makes it hard to lure characters away when you have a limited number of options. Besides all that, it's just kinda bland. I don't know, I don't even really recall any feelings I had towards the game, so I rate this one an empty feeling out of 10. So you know how I said the main issue with Nightmare Before Disney was how it didn't really tell you how to play the game properly? Well, this game takes that issue to a whole nother level. Oh boy, it's FNAF, the Lost Ones! How bad could it possibly be? Very. This game doesn't fucking tell you anything about how to fucking play this wretched load. All the game does is plop you in some unknown fucking house and says, alright, here you are, do your best. Like, what the fuck do I do? He just keeps getting closer, what am I supposed to do, and...
What the hell is that?
I don't even know what to say about this one. I mean, what is there to say? There's nothing. It just all happened so fast, and I don't even know how to defend myself. And the jump scare was so unsatisfying. I mean, I thought Five Nights at Wario's was gonna be the worst in terms of bad jump scares in this video, but this one takes the fucking cake. So yeah, big shocker, didn't spend a lot of time on this one. Speaking of Five Nights at Wario's though, yeah, I think this one takes the award for the most bizarre concept out of them all. I mean, Five Nights at Wario's? Even when the game came out, I was perplexed by the title, and this was when I was like 14 and lapped this shit up. But we can't judge a game based on its title. In this game, you work the night shift as a security guard at a fast food factory that was once owned by Wario of all characters. I mean, it's not like it's uncharacteristic of him.
Hey there, Jimmy. I need you to make some games for me.
Cactus Jack fucked me in the asshole.
Anyways, as the night guard of this place, it's your job to search through the cameras and shut your door when the characters get nearby. And that's really the whole gist of the game. Pretty simple stuff really, but it works. I think the game overall is okay, but the problem with it really is the game's difficulty. It's way too damn easy. The FNAF games are all pretty brutal in their difficulty, meaning you always have to keep your eyes on the screen and makes each victory you achieve all the sweeter. The reason Markiplier beating 420 mode was so cool was because we saw how hard he fought to win, and it made it all the better when he actually did succeed. In Five Nights at Wario's, we grew so bored that me and Horrorholic just started going on our phones by night 3. Ha! Hey, look at this.
Wow.
There wasn't much keeping us invested in our own damn playthrough, and I think it really boils down to one thing: the battery. This game gives you a whopping 200 units of battery power for each night, and this is way too much for one person. The challenge of the original Five Nights at Freddy's comes in having to balance and manage your power consumption because you have such a small amount of it that most nights end in you having barely any power left, if any at all. I feel like the developer Wario didn't quite understand this aspect and instead decided to emphasize the difficulty of the characters coming after the player, which if you've ever played a FNAF game, they shouldn't be any challenge to you. I feel like the game could have been great if it just tweaked the battery consumption just a little bit to make it more difficult, but as it stands, it isn't anything special. So let's see if the sequel's any better. Okay, so the first thing I noticed about the game is there's an experience system. This game has RPG elements. Wario is now confirmed to be an RPG character. I hope to see him playable in the next Mario and Luigi game. Small joke aside, the game now sees you working as a security guard for an all-new location, featuring much of the same crew from the first game. Instead of doors this time, when characters get near, you're supposed to move to a small generator room in the back, which houses a generator that runs power through the building. No power means no cameras and the increased likelihood that you'll be jump scared. These mechanics fit really well into this style of gameplay, and I consider this a big step up from the original Five Nights at Wario's, but I feel the difficulty almost dips into being archaic at times. This game can get pretty difficult, and making it to even Night 3 was a chore in all honesty. That being said, Five Nights at Wario's 2 is still solid, if still nothing groundbreaking. Much like FNAF 4, this game takes a different approach by making the setting the home of a wealthy man within the series. I can tell that the series follows a certain main character specifically, but I forgot his name and I don't really feel like looking it up, so... Anyways, you play as some sort of security guard for the estate during the night or something, with you being forced to stay in one room for each night. The cool part about this is that you change positions from one night to the next for each night, and each room has a different feature. For instance, the bathroom has pills that you're supposed to swallow, while the kitchen has an oven that provides light. I don't really like the odd dynamic with this, as it basically changes what you're used to every night. The cool part about FNAF for most of the series was the fact that the mechanics never changed, only the behaviors of the animatronics changed, so you always knew what you could do at the beginning of each night. And that's without even mentioning the botched execution of some of these. Specifically, the kitchen. Like I mentioned before, the shtick with this room is that you're supposed to give fuel to the oven in order to see. And how the mechanic is supposed to work is that you are supposed to light the room when the character is inside, but if you light it when no one's inside, then it makes characters rush towards you. Should be good so far, but it's broken in how it's handled. What you rely on to tell you if a character is in your room or not is the sound of a door opening and closing. The problem comes in the fact that the game used the same sound effect for any door being opened and closed no matter how far away. So instead of the sound being an effective tool to help you in the night, it instead hinders you and more often than not will lead you to your untimely demise. Most of my attempts at night 2 end miserably due entirely to this. I hear the sound, think it's my door, shine the light and find no one there, hear it again, so I do it again, and then I usually get killed. Wow, isn't that fucking fantastic. The pill mechanic isn't really much better as you have to scarf down pills whenever characters see you. Problem is, it doesn't always work. And like I mentioned before, that's the last thing you want in this type of game. It's shameful too because I enjoyed the first night fine enough and I was hoping that I would see more of what this game had to offer, but I was just barred by the broken controls. Right out of the box, this game just confuses me. All the previous games involved the main character dealing with the otherworldly ghosts of the main characters of Mario. In this game, you watch TV, but with a creepy side. Basically, the ghost of Wario and Mario, and who knows who else, are trying to haunt your TV. The longer the player watches, the more infected the TV becomes by the character's influence, until they overtake the TV and kill you. Lovely. This game is just such an odd idea that I'm surprised it got made at all. So here's the basic rundown of the gameplay. You watch TV, but your TV only has a limited amount of power for some unknown reason. But what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to periodically flip through channels, which costs battery. And when you notice a channel infected by Wario, you lower the brightness, which drains your battery like no tomorrow, to get him off the channel, because like that totally makes sense. And when it comes to Mario, you're supposed to flip to the radio to ward him off. The issues come with when these two spirits both come into play. Wario is always continuously trying to infect your TV, and is doing so at all times. Not only is he slowly infecting your TV as you watch, but if you switch to the radio or turn off the TV to recharge your battery, he infects the TV faster. So it's always a good idea to keep these moments quick. Now, these concepts are fine, especially since you visibly see Wario on the TV when his infections are worsening, leading to you lowering the brightness in order to fend him off. But problems arise when Mario gets involved. You see, I guess Mario hates classical music. I guess he's some sort of rap fan or something, because he gets repelled when you play classical music through a radio. But when you use the radio, Wario's infections grow, and I think you see where I'm kind of going with this. It's hard to balance the two apparitions and try and fend them off both at the same time, especially when Mario can just kill you out of nowhere. I've had this happen to me a couple times where Mario just kills me out of nowhere, with no indication that I was supposed to switch to the radio. I figured, hey, maybe I'm supposed to periodically switch to the radio, like winding the box in FNAF 2, I don't know. But when I do that and wait a couple seconds to make sure that it's working, I get jump scared by Wario. So which is it, game? How am I supposed to deal with both ghosts at the same time? How do I know when to switch to the radio? Is it periodic or not? The game doesn't really give you a clue, and by my own experience, the answer would be no. Honestly, by now I'm just kind of sick of this series. Next. Next! Oh man, now this is something special. One Night at Flumpty's. A strange title with an even stranger name. This hits you in a security chair for one whole night at Flumpty's place, where you have to survive against Flumpty and his entourage of sleep paralysis demons. These guys look like they fell off the short bus on the way to Disneyland.
What? The game cast includes Flumpty Bumpty himself, Birthday Boy Blam, who's Rev's favorite, the Beaver taking a dump, the Red Man, cousin Nagaius, Grunkfus the Clown, and the infamous Golden Flumpty. What a band of memorable characters.
I agree with that too. I love all the wacky, weird characters in this game. They capture the entire spectrum from Goofy to fucking Nightmare Fuel. And speaking of which, this game is just so fucking beautiful, man. The beautiful hand-drawn 2D art looks lovely, and the characters are super expressive. I just love the way it looks. Plus, the game has so much detail packed into it in all of its backgrounds. I mean, The Office alone has so many weird knickknacks to gawk at and giggle at just some of the weird shit here. It's great. Now, this game is what I would call the Super Mario The Lost Levels of FNAF fan games, as it's great, but it's dick-punchingly painful. There's only one night in this game, and by God do they put so much in just that one night. Meaning, you'll be facing every character when you begin the game. Now, of course, not every character starts sprinting at you from the beginning, but the game does spiral into hardcore difficulty faster than you would expect. So you have to be mindful of how the characters pile on. Not to mention, the Beaver is tough to deal with. He's supposed to act like Foxy in that he makes a mad dash towards your room, but it's hard to time correctly since the window of time between him leaving and him killing you is incredibly tight, and you have to actively anticipate it at all times, but you can't always keep your right door closed all the time because you have a limited amount of power on that door. It makes me really anxious when I play because just a few seconds is all he needs to rip me a new one, and I'm perfectly fine with my current one, thanks. Now, you might think this batshit difficulty of this game makes it bad, but that couldn't be farther from the case. I absolutely love this game. I think it's better than even certain FNAF games, that's how good it is. For starters, the game controls exactly like FNAF, so it's easy to slip in and start the game. If you've ever even seen the smallest amount of FNAF gameplay already, you already know how to play. Thirdly, the game makes it easy to track the movements of Flumpty and friends, as it's easy to figure out where they come from. And lastly, I love the constant motion the gameplay requires of me. It's the same reason why I liked Candies 2 so much, as it requires me to check something at all times. When it comes to Flumpties, I always have to do something, which is great as maintaining a sense of flow in a game where you are literally stationary. It keeps me invested in the game at all times, and that's perfect for a game like this. Overall, Flumpty's is a masterclass in simple yet satisfying gameplay. I recommend anyone to play it, especially fans of FNAF. If I had to critique something, it would be the fact that Grunkfus was hard to understand what his purpose was, as in was he gonna kill me the moment I opened the camera, but I was able to get it soon enough. Well, this game left some massive shoes to fill for its sequel. So does it meet that expectation? Well, I didn't think it was possible, but One Night of Flumpty's 2 improves upon the original in almost every way. Firstly, the phone call at the beginning is just a little jingle. That's amazing! Secondly, I mean, look at this art, man. It looks so much more detailed than the original and packs a ton of weird shit into the decor of the office. Thirdly, the mechanics have been refined, tweaked, and changed from the original to make the gameplay both better and more unique than its predecessor. In this game, you don't have any doors. Yeah, it looks like the developer graduated from FNAF 2 college, top of their class. Instead, we have a bunch of other things. Firstly, we have a laptop that runs on battery. I guess the battery is busted somehow because you can only look at the laptop for about 3 seconds before the battery runs out completely and you need to recharge. Thankfully, as long as your office is lit, the laptop will always be recharging itself when not in use. So you can rest easy knowing that. Secondly, you have an exposure and light mechanic.
Whenever a character looks at you from the passageway in front of your office, your exposure meter increases. When it fills, you die from whoever was the last one to fill the bar. To stop it from happening, you have to shut off all the power in the room through the use of this handy switch here. Eventually, after doing this, whatever character is peering into your office will walk off minding its own business. This game also introduces 2 new characters into the mix, the Owl, taking the spot of the Beaver, and Eyesore, a mango of 12 to 13 different victims' heads on a dinosaur body who've all failed to pass Flumpty's game.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
It's the first time I'm hearing about this. Bruh, what? This new mechanic adds a crazy amount of depth that I never thought about. Typically in a FNAF fan game, if you get caught, that would be the end of your run, the point where you would die and you would have to restart. This game made me realize just how punishing that type of thing really was, and has a more sensible exposure system that still may well result in your demise if you're not really competent, but is mainly used to continue the momentum of the game by implementing it as a factor in the gameplay loop. Now, it's not treated as the end of your run, but more like your health bar shrinking in another game, so you can recoup from the damage instantly and keep playing. It's a small change, but I welcome it, as it keeps the game going without diluting the game's difficulty. Because make no mistake, this game is still hard. You still have to be on your toes and check all types of things. Not only do you have to keep your eye on Flumpty and Birthday Boy Blam, but you also have to watch out for Grunkfuss, the clown, who can randomly appear in your office to raise your exposure. You also have to watch out for Redman, as he appears as a warning on your computer and you have to click cancel or else he kills you. And you have to keep an eye on the Owl, who has taken the place of the Beaver, which I'm totally fine with. This time around, the game is more generous with how you deal with the Owl coming into your office, with the window of time being surprisingly long. I think it might even be longer than the time it takes Foxy to get from Pirate's Cove to your office in FNAF 1. Regardless, I love this feature because it's more interesting with the introduction of vents. Only the Owl can attack you from vents, but which vent he goes through is random. Could be from the left, could be from the right, but he always has instant access to both of them, so it's your job to know when he leaves, check the vent you currently have closed, and take the proper actions afterwards. It's a fun mechanic that keeps up the pace of the game in between people popping up into your office, and is a vastly improved version of the Beaver. I mean, what else is there to say? This game is just amazing. If you have a PC, I implore you to check it out, especially with it being Halloween season now. It's not the best horror game, but it's definitely the best of its kind, and is my favorite FNAF fan game. And with Scott helping out the development of the 3rd game, I'm excited to see where this series goes. Well, that was one hell of an adventure, wasn't it? We saw it all, from the good, the bad, and the ugly, and back to the good again, so I hope we uncovered some gems that could be found within the FNAF community. Whether I personally enjoyed the game or not, I can tell that all these games were made from a deep, fervent passion for the original game made by Scott Cawthon, and the fact that he's giving back to the community that has made his career by funding the development of other fan games honestly warms my heart, and I think it makes him a role model to other aspiring developers as well. So regardless of our thoughts on these games are at least great showcases of the passion and talent of the FNAF community. Because if there are 2 words that could describe the fan base, it'd be those. Horrorholic, you have any closing thoughts?
I think if you're a FNAF fanatic, or just a point-and-click horror fan, and are looking for games to play, definitely take a look at some of the games we've listed down.
Alright, and with that said, I was Rhythm Rev.
I was Horrorholic.
And thank you for watching. And also, make sure to check out his channel. He's going to be starting his own YouTube channel soon. So make sure you give him some love, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
See you guys.